everyone. I'm Rachel here with Ari, and we're your hosts for the Merry Writer podcast. This week, we're on episode 284 asking, who is Liz Shipton? Before we start, if you enjoy the show, consider checking out our coffee page. You can follow the page for free as we have plenty of freebies for all. And if you're feeling generous, you can become a Merry Writer for just $2 a month. You'll help keep the show going and also have access to bonus episodes and exclusive shop items. But if that's not your style and you still enjoy the show, then please subscribe wherever you're listening if you're not already.
Liz, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Before we actually go into the main questions, can you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them how long you've been writing?
Sure. My name is Liz Shipton. I am a writer and full-time off-grid liveaboard sailor. And I've been writing actually for as long as I've been sailing, which is about 4 years at this point.
I do love that you live on a boat. I think that's so cool. Can I ask why? Is that just
Great question. I wish I knew the answer. No. So my partner and I, so it's my partner and I and our dog who have been living on this sailboat for the last 4 years. He got into sailing when we were going to college together in San Diego. He really enjoyed it. He did it through his college. He ended up getting a job teaching through the college, like teaching sailing, and just really fell in love with being on the water. And I was kind of like, I'm game, and also wanted to write and wanted to travel, and kind of knew that this lifestyle would give me the freedom, both in terms of time and also financially, to explore writing in a more like full-time capacity. Because, you know, obviously buying a boat is a lot cheaper than buying a house, especially where we were in California. And our lifestyle, the overhead costs we have are very low. So it sort of allows me to freelance. I started out supporting us through freelance writing, and more over the last 4 years, I've been able to transition into supporting us more and more through my fiction work, and really building that career. So it was partly the housing market, partly wanting to adventure a little bit, and partly wanting to write. For me was a big part of why I chose to do it.
That's so cool. I think that's great that you were able to just say, this is what I want to do, and you just built a lifestyle around that, but you're still comfortable. Good for you guys.
Yeah. I wouldn't say we're always comfortable.
Well,
not the most comfortable lifestyle. Which it's funny because I'm literally talking to you after like a 4-day passage that we just did that was not the most fun ever, to be totally honest. But like, yeah, for the most part, it's great. And I always like to say that I tried to make my life support my art rather than trying to make my art support my life. That's kind of how I've come about things.
That's incredible. Seriously. I think especially because anyone I know or have heard of who lives on a boat, it's almost always a canal barge where they just go up and down canals and that's it. So the idea of being like on a yacht, so you could be out in the sea and going further afield, that's like pirate level. That's just brilliant.
It is. It's fun. I would love to live on a canal boat, actually. That is actually kind of one of my dreams. In England on a canal boat would be awesome. Super fun. Yeah, I would love that.
Oh yeah, we do have some good canal boats and canals over. Well, as I say, I don't live in England anymore. I'm in Northern Ireland now. But yeah, it is. I've got to admit the idea of being kind of, I'm not going to say the right word, but like limited with how much you can put on it. Because it's so easy if you have a house, you rent a house, to just keep accumulating things. Whereas when you're on a boat, it's like you've got a certain amount and that's it, for space, for weight.
Yeah, which is something actually I really like about it too, because I'm very much like I want as little as possible in terms of stuff.
I think being on a boat is like minimalism at its finest. So that's pretty good. Now, I'm going to get into the questions now, because speaking of writing on a boat, what does your writing process currently look like?
Yeah, so my process is I always start with the 15 beats method from Save a Cat Writes a Novel. And I don't know if you guys or your listeners are already familiar with it. I can explain it a little bit if you guys want.
Yeah, you can. I'm vaguely familiar with it. So absolutely, go right ahead.
Yeah, well, so basically it breaks down. It's based on Save the Cat, which is a very well-known screenwriting book. And it sort of breaks down a story arc into 15 beats, 3 acts and 15 beats. And so you basically kind of plan out your whole story based on those 15 beats. And so you start with like your intro, which is your opening image, I think is what they call it, where we see the character, we see their life in its current state. And I can't remember all the names of all the 15 beats, but basically you have like your catalyst, and this is like the event that kind of kicks off the whole story. This is like where the character experiences the thing that's going to flip them from their life as is now into their life in the story. And then as you progress through the story, there's more beats that happen up into, you know, like the climax. Then I can't remember what they call them all, but basically you do it, you know, you plot out those beats. From there, that will usually be about like 3 or 4, well, up to like 6 pages of however, you know, detailed and long the story is. And then from there, I'll go back and I will start bullet pointing chapters. So at this point, I know that when I write a book, it's going to be around 30 chapters ish. Sometimes it'll be up to like 36. Sometimes it'll only be like 26, but I'm aiming for about 30. And so I just start kind of breaking that down, those 15 beats down further into 30 chapters of bullet points. And then once I have all of the chapters bullet pointed, then I'll go in and start at chapter 1, just writing down the chapters, filling in all the detail and filling everything out. And like things will change certainly between like each step of the process. So I might have a chapter bullet pointed and then be like kind of halfway through writing it and realize like, oh, this doesn't actually make sense, or I didn't think about this thing, or there's not enough detail here, or this particular bit of dialogue doesn't actually make sense. So things can definitely shift, and there's a lot of room for pantsing things within that structure or that framework that you've established to plot things out. Like I've had in the Thalassic series, which is the first series I wrote, in book 2, I had plotted out the whole thing based on it was gonna be a girl and her dog on a boat sailing across an ocean. And then in like chapter 11, I was like writing the chapter, and all of a sudden my fingers are like writing this new character into existence, and I had no idea where it was coming from, and I was like, what is happening right now? But I liked it, so I went with it, and I ended up having to re-bullet point every chapter from then on out with this new girl in it. But she ended up being one of the best characters in the series, so I'm so glad that happened. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I plot things out as much as I can, but I always know that there's gonna be, you know, pantsing and stuff that happens on the fly.
You know, to be flexible, which I think is a hard lesson for when I first started writing. I always outlined, and I outlined to a T, and then I would write and I stuck with the outline like no tomorrow, because that's the point of the outline. And it wasn't until years of writing that I realized the outline is more of a guideline, because you get to those points where you just start writing and your fingers and your brain are just like, yeah, I know you had this in mind, but this is better, so we're going to go with it. And it's always good to have that flexibility. And when you have to update your bullet points, do you set time aside to update your outlines while you're writing, or are you in the middle of a chapter and you're like, oh, let me update this real quick and write some notes?
At this point, I actually don't update the bullet points anymore. I will just keep writing. And I know, like, so for example, right now I document all of this on Patreon actually, and I post weekly my current work in progress. A chapter goes up every week, and I post the bullet points alongside the chapter for anyone who, you know, might be interested in seeing that. And at this point, I've gotten to the point where I won't update the bullet points, because I'll kind of know where it's going, and I'll sort of know like, all right, I know I'm going to kind of meet up with them eventually at a certain point down the road. So there might be 3 or 4 chapters where the bullet points and what I'm writing just don't match up at all. And I kind of just know in my head that, okay, it's going to sync up eventually. And then once it does, I'll maybe go back through the bullet points and just be like, well, were there any like points in here that I missed that I know are like crucial character bits or dialogue, like one-liners that I really liked or whatever, that need to get worked in somewhere else, or do they need to be worked into the existing chapters?
I think you're the first guest, whenever we ask the processing question, to actually give us a really good, like, meaty answer. And it's like I heard about the Save the Cat novel. I actually did read it. It didn't work 100% for me, but I do like the beats method. I use the 7 plot point method, so it's very similar. But I always find that kind of when you've got a structure you can follow, like it's almost like the skeleton of it. And then, as you said, as you're writing, you get a bit more flexible and something else pops up. And that's where you add more meat to it. I always love that. And I actually think that's really interesting that you have like you aim for 30 chapters, even if you don't hit that. I like that you have an idea of how many chapters you kind of want to be aiming for. Because again, I don't think many people have ever mentioned anything like that. Is there a reason that you really like that kind of aim for 30? Is it just to make it a nice even spread?
That is a great question. I think this has come from, at this point, I've written quite a lot of books in 4 years. The Scholastic series is 9 books long. I wrote Magic last year, which is my trad publishing debut, which is coming out in August. And then I've also written 12 short stories last year. So at this point, I kind of have a pretty good idea of like what my process is and how things are going to break down. And I think that really has just come from doing it over and over and over again. Which, there's no shortcut to that. You just have to like write a lot of books. I would say the 30 chapters might be a little bit of my brain. Just like in Google Drive, which is where I do all my writing. And I know I probably shouldn't do it there, but I just haven't found another thing yet. But in Google Drive, I break things down. So I'll have like a folder for Act 1, a folder for Act 2, and a folder for Act 3. And my brain just really likes knowing that there's 10 chapters in each folder. And knowing, even though like technically in the like Save the Cat, like the way the acts are actually structured, it doesn't break up perfectly into 10 chapters per act. Like Act 1 is more like chapters 1 through 3, and then Act 2 is more like 3 through 28, and then Act 3 can, so, but just for my own brain organization, 10 chapters in each folder is really nice.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love the idea of the patterning. Totally get that. I have to just make a mention. How many books have you written in 4 years?
Many. Well, so that's the other thing about living on the boat. I get to do this all the time, which is incredible. Like, I am extremely grateful that I mean, obviously I designed it this way. I built my life for it to be this way. But I get to write a lot, and it's literally all I want to do. It's actually kind of a problem. So yeah, I've written a lot, and there's no way to get better at writing than to just like write a lot.
I think we need to get a boat, Rach. We need boats. It sounds like a good way of getting away from distraction, because my life is just one distraction. And then the life is like a little thread running through distraction. So yeah, if you're on a boat, I suppose you're not always dealing with everything else.
Yeah. I mean, there is obviously stuff to deal with and there's stuff to do, but like I also have an incredibly supportive partner who does like we basically decided like I will support us. What did I say? I will keep us floating financially if he can keep us floating like literally. So he does all of our like logistics planning, route planning, watching the weather, maintaining the boat. There's always something broken. He cooks. He does the majority of our cooking. Like, so yes, I am also incredibly lucky to have a partner who takes on like all that side of things. So yeah, and no kids, which again, like, is probably pretty huge.
Oh, wow, you guys have everything so well figured out.
It took a long time to get here. We planned for like 5 or 6 years before we even like bought the boat and got on. So I mean, it was a lot of planning and upfront work to make it happen.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure it's not easy. Like I wouldn't even know where to begin, but that is still an amazing feat that you guys were able to do that. But if you write the majority of your time, how many hours a day do you put into your books?
Too many, like way too many.
Don't you ever get stuck? Like, what do you do when you get stuck?
It's funny. I don't get stuck as much anymore. And I think that really plotting and doing the bullet points and all of that really helps, because if you go into a chapter having the whole thing already bullet pointed and having the whole story ahead of you, knowing where it's going, it's a lot easier to just you're just, well, all I'm doing is like filling in these bullet points and just gonna add better dialogue and more description and try to make it fancy or, whatever. So I think that really helps in not getting stuck. When I do get stuck, it's usually because I haven't actually thought something all the way through in terms of like a character's motivations or some detail about the world that I haven't actually like when I'm bullet pointing, I'm sort of going, well, that is, and then when I actually get there, it's like, well, you didn't actually think about this. So what is it actually? And then I kind of have to sit there and think like, all right, well, so in X number of years ago, this happened, and then why is it like that? So yeah, I don't know. You just kind of have to beat your head against it until you get through it, I guess.
It's actually a good lead in to the next question. So you do have the series called the Thalassic series. I
Yeah,
hope I pronounced that correctly, which is
yeah, that's correct.
dystopian pirates. So
Yes.
what drew you to that genre specifically?
So when I first started writing, the only thing that I could really, I wasn't a big reader at the time. And to be completely honest, I'm still not. I'm trying to better at reading more and reading, just reading more basically. But at that time, the only thing I could really remember from like my childhood reading was The Hunger Games. And I loved The Hunger Games. And I was like, I want to write something like that. So that was kind of where I got into like dystopian. And also, I think just like me as a person, dystopian and apocalypse, I live on a boat, you know, like I'm you could call me a doomsday prepper, I guess, if you wanted. I don't consider myself one, but like I do live out here off grid using solar, you know, in this sort of weird post-apocalyptic lifestyle. So it sort of just like resonates with me, and a lot of my favorite fiction has been of that ilk. So, you know, dystopian and that kind of thing. And then the pirate side of things obviously just came from, you know, living on the boat. I started writing the first book like right around the time that we left on the boat. And I was really just taking a lot of the experiences that we were having and taking a lot of my own personal previous life experiences and just sort of channeling it all through this lens of dystopian fiction, to create this like dystopian Waterworld series.
I love how with writing that while being on the boat is kind of like your living research, you know? So it's like it's none of this, I've got to research how to do this and how to that's like you're literally in it. Like, oh, how do I sort this if this happens? Or, you know, how, you know, where do you dock and everything? It's like that's talk about living your experience completely. It's just brilliant.
I mean, you have to write what you know, right? And like I mean, that's I guess the other thing about an alternative lifestyle is it broadens what you know, and sort of broadens the things that you are able to write about. But yeah, all of the books are very much based on, and I'm not like I'm very open about the fact that all of my main characters are basically me, and they're just like thinly veiled versions of me and my life and the things that I'm into and my experiences. And I kind of think like, you know, at least when you're starting out, you sort of have to write that way. I don't know, unless you're really into history or you're really into a particular topic or that kind of thing. Where else are you going to draw from but from your own experience?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think all of us have put a little bit of ourselves into our characters at one point or another. And I do agree that when you first start writing, one of the biggest pieces of writing advice people give you is to write what you know. And yeah, you're the only one who knows yourself. And I think it's something cathartic to put yourself in the shoes of a fictional character and be the hero, so to speak.
Totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also to like that series in particular was a really was I was discovering a lot about myself as I wrote it. And it was a nice way for me to sort of take a lot of things that were my flaws and to be able to like reframe them into like superpowers, which is essentially kind of what the series is about. Is like the main character is struggling at the beginning of the series is struggling with addiction and with a lot of unresolved and undiagnosed mental health issues, and all of that stuff is kind of interplaying. And then by book three, she's sort of figured out how to turn all of that into the thing that ultimately saves the world, because it's dystopian fiction, right? So it's, you know, you got to save the world and bring down the government. So yeah, that was kind of a fun thing to be able to do.
You know what? I'm going to segue off of that and ask you to explain further about the themes you typically explore in your books.
Sure. So yeah, like as I mentioned, mental health and addiction are two things that, especially in the Tholastic series, that are very prevalent in that series. There's a lot of queer identity stuff more in the second half of the series. So the series kind of breaks down into like books 1 through 3 are focusing on the female main character's narrative, and that's a lot of the mental health, addiction. And then the second 3 books in the series we switch over to the male main character's POV, and he's dealing with a lot of queer identity and also immigrant identity. He's a second generation immigrant. So yeah, those things. And then obviously climate change is a big factor in that series, because the way the world got to be the way it is through climate change and multiple pandemics, sort of the compounding effects of those things. And then tech creep, I am a former software engineer, so like the world of tech is something that I like. I was in it for 5 years. I have thoughts about it and like to put those thoughts into my work. And that there's a lot more of that in like my upcoming debut /magic, which is really like drilling into like the tech side of things. And then there's always going to be found family. I love a good ragtag crew of underdogs. Like, who doesn't? And then as far as the romance goes, I think sometimes when I market my books as romance, people can sometimes get a little bit annoyed because they're not really romance. There's romantic subplots in all of them, but there's rarely a happily ever after. And I think a lot of them technically you couldn't really consider romance, but there's always going to be a romantic subplot, at least as far as I have written.
I love found family. That is my absolute favorite trope. It is, I could go on and on about it, but you cover so much in your books. Like, that's amazing. You really said I took my life experiences and I put them in my books. Like that's just so much. Can I ask, I mean, you probably already kind of answered this, but why did you get out of the tech field? Like, was just writing your number one priority?
So actually, the only reason I really got into tech in the first place was to try and save money to buy this boat and do this. So at the time that I got into tech, I was actually a musician. My partner and I, when we met, we were both musicians. We were, in school, whatever, doing all that stuff, and that was where my writing was. What my writing was doing at that time was writing songs, writing lyrics, composing and arranging tunes and stuff like that. And basically he started getting into sailing. He realized he really liked it. We realized we wanted to do this thing with the boat. And at that point I was like, well, we're going to need some money, and neither of us really have any because we're both broke musicians. So I'd better figure out something to do that's going to make me some actual money. And at that time, this was around 2015, 2016. This was when the push to like get everyone coding was really kind of at its height. And I kind of thought, well, maybe I could try that. So I spent 8 months teaching myself to code, basically, and then got into a boot camp in San Francisco, which was like a 3-month super intensive learn to code course. And coming out of that, I got a job, and was hired, and which blew my mind, honestly. Like, having never even really held down like a real job before. Like, I literally had been just a gigging musician and teaching music to kids privately, and then all of a sudden was like in Silicon Valley in a tech company, just going like, God, I hope no one figures out that I don't know what I'm doing. And spent like 5 years basically doing that. And literally the whole purpose of that was just to try and save as much money as possible so that we could get this boat, so that we could go and do that. And the writing sort of became a goal as I was in the software field, because I started to realize, I was like, I like coding. All the people I met in tech were amazing. There is a real culture in some places of them just wanting to teach you and share knowledge. And, there really are a lot of really smart, generous, incredible people. When we left on the boat, that was when I was like, all right, I'm going to go back to something creative and I'm just going to make it happen. And started to kind of really try to put like everything I had into that.
Wow. So it was essentially a stepping stone for you.
That was the idea. Yes.
But it was a fun
Yeah.
stepping stone. Like you enjoyed your time with
Yeah.
it and you did learn a lot. Like that's,
Oh my God,
that's,
I learned
I could listen to you talk all day. Like genuinely, like your story is so fascinating.
I've been, I've been very lucky to have been raised in an environment and have a supportive upbringing and family and all of that stuff. I mean, I don't love the word privilege. I prefer the word luck because I mean they're both kind of the same thing, I think. But yeah, I have a lot of privilege and I'm trying to do with it the best that I can, I guess.
Well, it seems to be working as long as you're happy and you're doing what you want. I mean, you're like everything that you've said so far is like very inspirational because I know that there are so many people, myself included, they want to be creative or they want to do something else, but they're doing this instead. And some people just they don't have the support and or they don't have the guts and the drive to go after what they want. Or if they do, it takes them a while to get there, which is fine. That's normal. But I think it's awesome that you knew what you wanted to do and you kind of went with it. I'm sure it wasn't without struggle, but I mean, you got there and that's pretty cool.
Thanks. Yeah, I think probably a certain amount of like naivety is also necessary because there are definitely parts of this lifestyle that like had I known before I agreed to do this, would I still have done it? I'm not sure. But just kind of me being like, let's go is a little bit helpful to just dive in head first, eyes closed, you know?
I feel like it was very out the box thinking. The fact that you had this idea of like, yeah, I'm going to buy a boat, we're going to live on a boat, we need some money for it. I don't think many people would have thought, you know what? I'm going to learn to code. I'm going to go to an intense thing and I'm going to go and throw myself at Silicon Valley and do that. That's not, most people are like,
Yeah.
well, I'll get a waitressing job. I'll do admin. Most people think
Yeah.
I'm not going to relearn something completely different. You know, that you obviously, it sounds like you weren't brought up with coding. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to learn all
Yeah.
that. That's a very outside the box thinking. I mean, you're on
I
a
guess
boat,
so.
so I think that's
I'm
always
pretty outside the box out here, I guess you could say. Yeah. Yeah, and also probably just quite a lot of ego, to be completely honest, to even have the audacity to think that I could. But then when you think about it, that's also the exact same type of person that writes 9 books. So yeah, it's just audacity, I guess. I don't know.
It sounds like you need that. And it's like, I think we all need a bit more of audacity to sort of push us out because, you know, as Rachel says, you know, you can end up falling into the same patterns that everyone else does, and it doesn't give you much out of that because you're on the same treading path that you know what's coming and that. But just circling back to how you said about the tropes and about the romance subplot, I actually find that really interesting because I think there's obviously been this big push recently about romanticy, and even if you use the word romance as a subplot, people go, "Oh, it's romance," and it's like, not. And it always reminds me of movies. You know, originally movies were like, you know, the action and there'd be a romance subplot, but now it's like a romance action, and even the word romance has started to be at the front. So then people come thinking, well, I'm expecting all this romance. And even when it's like, no, it's just part of it, but not the whole thing. And I think it is because people are just like hooked into romance. So that kind of ties a little bit to my next question, which is you've written 2 versions of the same series, which, by the way, love the idea of that. So you've got a spicy adult version and a clean YA version. How did you go about creating 2 different versions?
Yeah, so people hear that, especially when they also hear that it's 9 books, and they go, "What is wrong with you?" But so to be totally clear, they are literally the same books. The only difference is that the adult spicy version has spicy scenes in it, where the YA version doesn't have those scenes, or it fades to black. And so the way that what happened was I actually wrote the YA version first. And when I wrote that series, I wasn't intending for there to be any romance at all in the series. To be completely honest, I don't really read a lot of romance. And I sort of, when I started writing, I was like, I don't like romance. I don't want everything is romance. Like I hate it. I hate romance. It's so cheesy. It's so cringy. I don't want it anywhere near my books. And then as I was writing, I was researching as well more about like YA because like okay, I read Hunger Games, but I didn't really know what makes like a YA book and like what you really need. So I read a couple books. I read Legendborn. Shout out to Legendborn. That book is amazing. And the more I read and the more I researched, the more I kind of realized, okay, well, romance is like, especially in like YA dystopian, you've got like Divergent. Hunger Games has romantic subplot, Legendborn, stuff like that. There's usually at least some romance in there, which makes sense because, you know, as a young adult person, as a teenager, that is a huge part of your experience, is that like first love and all those feelings and all those emotions. So I kind of sucked it up and begrudgingly wrote this YA no spice romantic subplot in the series. And then I think I was about 3 books into the series when I got on Booktok and started discovering. At that time, I didn't even know spicy books existed. I had never come across anything about spice or anything in my entire life. And then I discovered Booktok and Akatar. And I was like, huh, well, this is interesting. And everyone seems to really like it. I wonder if I could do that. And so it kind of started as like a challenge for me to see even if I would be comfortable writing it. Second of all, if anyone would even read it after I had written it. And, you know, so it sort of just bloomed from there. I started out by writing some bonus scenes basically for the YA series. And before everyone gets on their high horse about, you know, YA books having spice, they're on the upper end of YA. So the YA versions, I think the main character starts out at 18 and she turns 19 throughout the series. So once I had written those spicy scenes, I liked them so much that I was like, well, what if I just aged the characters up a little bit and put the scenes into the books and just like put the books out as spicy books as well. And so that's what I did. So in the spicy version, she starts at age 19, and then I think through the series she ages to like 21. And the male main character starts at 21, and I think he becomes like 23 throughout the series. And yeah, basically just those NA books have spice in them, and the YA books is just fade to black, or they're just not there.
I think that's incredible. I never heard that until I found your books and I saw that and I thought that is genius. And not even with just the YA and the new adult, because there's obviously there seems to be a large set of readers at the moment that are just like spice hungry, which no shame at all. But then you also have the reverse of that, which I've seen started creeping up, which is the absolutely no spice. We want clean, very sweet and everything. Again, no judgment, absolutely. People like what they like. And I have seen where people have started a series that were, maybe it's a slow burn, because I'm all big on slow burn. And they've got like through 2 or 3 books, and then they realize like book 4 has got like spice in it. And suddenly it's like, oh, I can't finish this book. And I always thought, well, that's actually quite sad if you really like a certain series because of the story and the characters, and then it has spice and it's something you're just not interested in and it kind of stops the book. Or the other way, where it's like you like the idea of it but maybe you really really want to read spice and you end up giving up a book or a series or an author because it just doesn't have that. So the idea of catering to 2 different sets of people, and it doesn't have to be with YA and then but you could literally write the same book with that. And I thought that is so clever. And it's like, and surely it would open up the marketing to more people to buy your book.
You would think. I mean, we'll see as as things kind of progress. At the moment, the majority of people read the spicy versions. And I think actually many people probably, the tricky thing about it is that you can't have both versions on like retail platforms at the same time. So like, for example, Amazon, I have the spicy version in KU. So that's primarily the one that people know about. The only place that I can sell the YA version is on my own website, direct sales. So I have the ebooks and the paperbacks there. So that makes things a little tricky in terms of just like people knowing about the YA series, which I love it when people ask me this question because I get to talk about it, which is wonderful. But what was actually really cool is, so the book deal I just got last year for the book that's coming out in August, /Magic, I asked the publisher if we could do the same thing where we release a spicy version and a no spice version, and they agreed. So there's going to actually be a no spice version of the ebook available. So basically, people still have to buy the spicy version, but then you can get in touch with like a receipt or proof of purchase. And if you would prefer to read it with no spice, we'll send you a no spice version of the ebook, which I thought was pretty cool of the publisher to agree to that. Like I didn't actually expect them to, but yeah.
I wouldn't expect the publisher to do that either. That's pretty good. You might be starting a new trend.
We'll see. We'll see.
You know, you never know. I have to say though, Ari, maybe you agree with me, or I hope you agree with me. I took the 2 different versions literally. I thought you sat down and wrote each book from start to finish from scratch. And so when
that
you
would
just
have
said,
been insane.
well, that's why I was like, oh my God, like what?
Yeah.
No, I didn't
I-
agree. I assumed that she just added in spice. I like, who is going to
so I
rewrite
just
a
took,
whole
I'm the only
book?
one that took it literally. Okay.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you
most
mentioned-
people. Oh, sorry. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Nope, go ahead.
I was gonna say most people assume that I wrote the spicy version first and then like cut the spice out. I actually think that that would have been more difficult to do, and I'm really glad that the no spice version came first. Yeah, I don't know. I could elaborate on, or I actually can't elaborate on that because I haven't really thought it through. But yeah, kind of interesting. Most people assume that it started out spicy and that I took the spice out, but actually it went the other way.
I think that makes sense though, because it's easier to add than it is to take out. Because if you take out one thing, I feel like it has a domino effect. Because if you take something out and then you realize that you mentioned something that led up to that moment, well, now you got to take that up. Well, I guess you could say the
Right.
same thing about adding.
Well, it is, yeah, it is definitely a process. Like it definitely is harder than just like, oh, we'll cut and paste this scene. There's always like you have to go back and read through everything and take out like lines here and there or little bits and pieces. Like it's definitely not like a super easy just like duplicate the file and remove one chapter type situation. I probably won't do it again. Let's put it that way.
You tried it. You tried it,
Yeah,
and you know, you could say you had the experience of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned earlier that you sell some of your books direct as well. So what's that process like?
Yeah, so I mean, selling direct is nice because obviously I get to keep more of the overall profit. I don't have to give Amazon a split of the royalty or whatever it is. I sell them right now through a shop that's attached to my website that I set up with PayHip. I chose PayHip just because you can start for free and you don't have to pay like a monthly subscription like you do for Shopify. So PayHip is great. Then I do have also a very basic Shopify store that I think is like $5 a month that is just on my social media platform so that people can buy things directly from links. To be completely honest, I haven't really been able to make that work for me, which is annoying because I have so many views on my social media that it is feeling like a really missed opportunity, but I just haven't had the time or like whatever to really figure out how to make the social media facing shops work. Like I have a TikTok shop, but that particular account like just doesn't get any views compared to my like other account, which is frustrating. But yeah, I think having the shop attached to your website, especially if you can use something like PayHip that doesn't cost you anything to run, is a great way to do it.
So do you sell like the paperback versions direct too? Do you have to be the one to ship them out, like package them and ship them out?
So you can do it either way. I personally do it by drop shipping. So through Ingram Spark, if you have your books uploaded to Ingram Spark, which also allows you to distribute your paperbacks to places like Barnes and Noble online and all of those other online retailers. But if you do it through Ingram Spark, you can also fulfill orders yourself. Like you place one order, and then instead of shipping it to yourself as an author copy, you can just like drop ship it to the person who ordered it from you. That's the way I do it just because of where I live. I can't have books delivered to me. So I can't do signed copies, unfortunately, which is kind of a bummer, but it does mean that, yeah, I can just drop ship books to readers when they order them from my website.
I don't think I knew you could do that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, very like economical way of doing it also. And you can do like one at a time, one order here, one order there.
That's really good because obviously, with yourself specifically, you've no space to add a whole pack of books in your. It's like I can imagine that would be the worst thing. But yeah, a lot of people have no space to keep books for themselves to then post out, and obviously that's a lot of time and effort packing them, putting shipping labels on, going to the post office. So yeah, I also didn't know that Ingram Spark did that, so I've just made a note to look into that. It's good to know.
Yeah, Ingram Spark. I mean, Ingram Spark. the interface of Ingram Spark is a nightmare, and it can be quite labor intensive because I literally have to fill each order by hand. So like you go in, type out the name, type out the address, select what books they want in their cart. So if you have a lot of orders come in at once, that can be quite a long process. So like I just ran a Kickstarter that went much, much better than I thought it was going to. And now me and my partner are going to spend, I don't even know how long, filling every order by hand through the nightmare UI of Ingram Spark, and we are not looking forward to it at all. But yeah, but it can be done.
But it's interesting that, because like I said, your Kickstarter, you didn't expect it to kind of boom the way it did. So suddenly it's like,
Yeah.
you've got a lot of work to do.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But that actually leads perfectly to my next point, which is regarding marketing. So what marketing tactics can you share that you found worked well for your books and your systems?
Yeah, well, so obviously I think probably if people know me at all, it's probably from my like Instagram and TikTok reels, where I sit at the computer doing wiggly fingers and I dissect silly romance tropes. That is probably the main thing that has clued people into my work. Although those videos don't sell books as well as just a book related video will. So authors who are able to post, about their book to Booktok and get 1 million views on that post, that's what's really going to blow your books up, which I actually have not figured out how to do yet because I've done so many comedy videos. Now the TikTok and Instagram algorithm, that's like all they want from me. So posts about my books tend to not do as well, which is incredibly frustrating. But I will take what I can get. So that's great. Instagram and TikTok, 100%, and Facebook actually as well. I cross post. I basically post my reels to Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and I think now I'm putting them on Blue Sky, although they're not really doing very much over there. Those have been probably the main way that I have like sold books and gotten people into my whole ecosystem or whatever you want to call it. Apart from that, like hook and slideshow reels on TikTok are a really good way of actually selling books. So I don't know if you're on the app at all, but you'll see a post that's like a still photo and it has some text over it that'll have a hook like, she did XYZ and he didn't like that or whatever. That's a horrible hook. But and then you swipe through and there'll be more like, it's like basically a scene from your book, sort of like, pasted over these slides. Those work really well if you can get them to work. So I do a lot of that as well. And then apart from that, like for the upcoming trad launch, I'm doing more pitching myself to blogs and podcasts like you guys. So like reaching out to blogs to see if they would like a guest post about, for example, off-grid living or sailing, or about some aspect of writing. Those I think are pretty good. But for the most part, the marketing that I've done has primarily been on social media.
I have to admit, I did. That's how I found you. The funny comedy ones. I think one popped up and I couldn't get through it because I was laughing so hard and feeling a little called out with some of the names. I'm like, oh God, I've really got to be better with my naming of my fantasy characters. And that, like, I know you said like you have your reels and the comedy ones. They may not be the ones that sell books. I hate that the algorithm does that sometimes. That it's like, oh, you did this thing that everyone loves and you can't do anything else. Nothing else. This is it. And I'm terrible. I hate social media. I keep going on it and then I come off it again. And I didn't like reels. And I've just started, I try and go back on. And just I'm like, right, maybe I should start doing reels. They came back and went, carousels are now the big one. Reels are still okay, especially if you've been doing it a long time. But if you're new to doing something, carousels. And I feel like if I wait long enough, things move around to something I'm able to manage. So the idea of the carousel with a hook and then moving across, that actually sounds possible for me.
Yeah, those are good. And like you can kind of recycle content. You also don't have to be on camera. So like those comedy videos I make are pretty labor intensive. Like I have to write a script, I have to set up, I have to film myself, I have to edit it together, I have to record the audio. Like it is an intense like process in terms of the labor. But like the carousels are great because all you got to do is like paste some text over a slideshow and then people swipe through. And it's actually quite annoying to see how well those do when the videos that I make, which I've like so much work put into them, like, and don't really sell books. I've sort of like painted myself into this very frustrating corner. But I'm hoping that like as things continue to progress, I will eventually paint myself out of it again.
I was just going to say, I feel like when you put so much time and effort into something, it doesn't do that great. And then like
Oh God, it's
other
the worst.
times it does. Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, social media in general is just weird to begin with, but
yeah, I genuinely don't like social media. I don't think it's good for us as a species. I don't like the people that run it. I don't like that I have to be on it all the time, but it is sort of this like bed of nails that I am currently lying in. So
it's like we're at the point where we don't really have much of a choice, since I mean that's where the majority of marketing is digital this day and age. And I mean, if anybody has seen my Instagram, you can clearly see I post regularly for like a month and then I take like a 6-month hiatus. I just disappear because I can't stand it. I go on it and I start doing well and then I get depressed and then I have to get off of it. It's ridiculous, but it's part of our job, unfortunately.
it does sometimes, that's the thing that's so annoying, is it does start to feel like the whole job. I'm trying to get to a point at the moment where I can maybe like offload some of that work onto someone else and pay someone to do it. But I have been in the frustrating position for the last like year or so where I'm like doing well on social media, but not actually making enough money from it to be able to pay someone to do it for me. So I'm like still having to do all the work, and also not making any money. It's yeah.
You're
There you go.
stuck in that in between.
Yeah.
Well, I just one final question for you that's a little, fun. Out of all the stories you've written, who is your favorite character? We're asking you who your favorite child is.
Yeah. I responded in your like written request. I wrote all caps. How am I supposed to answer this Sophie's Choice question? I genuinely don't know, you guys. Like I guess I would say that it's Sargo from the Tholastic series, just because he was the first like male love interest I wrote, I guess, and I just sort of fell in love with him because he's just such a mess. So I would say it's probably him. Um, should I describe him, or is that like
Spoiler free. Don't spoil anything, but yeah, go
sure?
for it.
All right. Well, he's a second generation immigrant living in a dystopian water world city. He is a sailor. He's sort of like he starts the series like very straight laced. He's like a student teacher at the sailing academy where him and the main character meet, and he's very much like by the book, following all the rules. He's a captain, like you have to be. And then sort of throughout the series, 6 books later, he's like unraveled to the point that his whole world just like comes apart, and then he sort of puts it back together. And I find it to be a very like satisfying character arc. So
I think we always hold that first character near and dear to our hearts. So that's good.
I have to admit, it's always good when you have a character that has that big change, because obviously characters are meant to develop, either get better or worse. It's got to develop. But I like the idea of a character unraveling from straight lace to kind of you gotta fall down and pick yourself back up. Those are always some of the funnest characters to read. So I can imagine writing them is quite fun too. I am supposed to be on a buying ban, and I've got a weird feeling I'm going to be buying all of your books now, and it's just this is not working for this year. I've already bought 8 books this year, and my buying ban started in January, so not doing well.
but imagine
Wait, did you say 8 books? 8?
Yes.
All right. Well, we're halfway through June, so it's like 1 book a month.
Like a book a month.
Fine.
Imagine how many you would have bought.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's literally.
Think of all the money you have saved.
Not that much. Not when you walk into an independent bookstore and go, "Ooh, well, I'm going to take a whole lot from the."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah,
We've all been there. I know. I'm entering my pirate phase right now, so I will probably be checking out your books as well.
Yay! Hooray!
Now, Liz, it's been awesome having you on the show, and we do have one final question because Ari and I are in a constant brawl about this. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Yes.
No question.
Thank you.
No,
I'm winning
we
still.
were equal. We had.
No,
we
I think I
drew
was
and
still one
now-
ahead. My
No,
notebook's
I
in the
don't
other
think you
room.
were. No. I was checking, and I don't think you were winning. We were tied. I'm sure, but
Liz, you are welcome back anytime.
Yay,
you.
thanks. Yeah, this is super fun. Thanks for having me.
But before we go, please let our listeners know a little bit more about you and where they can find your books.
Sure. Well, my official bio is that I am a part-time author, full-time pirate. I'm a full-time off-grid liveaboard sailor and writer, currently sailing around the world with my partner and my dog, turning my real-life adventures into speculative fiction. You can find me on basically all the social media platforms at Liz Shipton Author, or at my website, which is lizshipton.com. My debut trad published novel, Dot/Magic, is currently, actually, I guess by the time this comes out, I think it will be out. So you can go get that, and you definitely should. It is an urban fantasy about AI and the dangers of that. It just got, actually, I found out this morning, it got a starred review in Publishers Weekly, which I don't even know what that means, but my publisher's very excited about it. So great. So you can also read an excerpt of that in Paste Magazine, which is coming out, I guess by the time this airs, it'll have been out for a long time, but you can read an excerpt of that if you want, pastemagazine.com. My dystopian pirate series, which is called the Tholastic series, is free in KU. You can also get it from my website. And then I have a series of short, spicy, speculative stories called Tales of Mischief and Fuckery, which is also free in KU, or you can get that in like a hardcover anthology on my website as well.
Thank you so much. All of Liz's links and everything will be in the description below, so please do go check out her work. But now we will turn it over to you guys. And in the comments, please give Liz a shout out and let her know your thoughts on her work. And remember, we release a new episode every Wednesday. Next week, we're discussing handwriting your novel. To ensure you don't miss it, hit the subscribe button on your way out. As always, thanks for listening to the Merry Writer podcast. We'll see you guys next week. This podcast is brought to you by Thought-Provoking Questions. We overthink things. The music titled Inspired is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons 4.0.